गब्बर खुश होगा, शाबाशी देगा.
Yeah, Sabasi Dega. That's right. See, you remember more. I never went back to Telugu movies because I never made a Telugu film because a lot of people, a lot of Telugus believe that Hyderabad Blues was a Telugu film, which I was. I haven't been asked that in a very long time. I'll be honest, Namita, it's very, very hard to break the clutter. Because enough stories haven't been told about women, that area is fertile,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
भंवरे की गुंजन है मेरा दिल कब से it's a strange uh, bittersweet sort of connection with Atlanta.
क्या कर दिया तूने?
आशु ने भी मेरे लिए दूसरा कोई रास्ता नहीं छोड़ा.
बेटी है तू मेरी, लेकिन मैं मार डालूंगा तुझे.
कब तक ये खेल खेलेंगे बाबा? नए गायकवाड़ को साम्राज्य चलाने दो.
ये नहीं होगा.
So we have with us today Mr. Nagesh Kukunoor, the man who doesn't need any introduction, an actor himself, director of many hit movies, directed stars from Akshay Kumar to Juhi Chawla, and now he's coming back with the second season of his hit Hotstar series Mahanagri City of Dreams. Welcome, Mr. Kukunoor, to my show.
Glad to be here, Namita.
That let's talk about your Atlanta days, because I think our viewers and our readers know about your Atlanta days. How a person who's doing a job in Atlanta went on to become this huge director in Bollywood. How, when, and why this happened?
Well, I've always said that unhappiness is a great motivator, and you know, after going through the proverbial checklist of uh, how to be a successful immigrant Indian, which is, you know,
Uh-huh.
you come here for your masters, you finished your bachelor's in India. Uh, then I got myself a job and was climbing up the corporate ladder. But it quickly became apparent that I was not happy doing what I was supposed to be doing. When I was achieving all the milestones that, you know, are important to us Indians. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, then, you know, I looked inward, I think, for the first time instead of just doing and, you know, continuing. And it became apparent that I wanted to do something else. And initially, I didn't have a clear sort of, you know, razor focus kind of thing to say, okay, I want to be a director. I knew I wanted to do something with films, but I wasn't really sure. And then I started studying acting at the Warehouse Actors Theatre in Atlanta, and I did that for a few years, and it was as I acted, and it was one of those truly great acting classes that one could have gone to. It became apparent that I wanted to direct
Okay.
because uh, I've always enjoyed every aspect of filmmaking. Uh, and as a viewer, you know, everyone's an armchair director, right? You'd say, oh, I'd make that guy act differently, or, you know, I'd have kind of shot it differently,
No.
things like that. But as I acted, it became apparent that I just didn't want to be involved in one aspect of filmmaking, which was the
Right.
acting part. I wanted to do everything. And the only guy or gal who gets to do everything is when you're directing. That's the only time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And
and I've researched about you on Google, and it's written that you've used all your savings to make
right.
Hyderabad Blues.
There was the, yeah. You know, we reach a point in our lives when I'm sure everyone's gone through this, where you wake up suddenly and say, "Aaj mujhe kuch aur karna hai," and you know, I have this secret dream and stuff like that. And I was no different, but before I could chicken out, I, you know, packed whatever little I had, took all my savings and went to India to make the film, because that window that we have when our courage is strong and we want to do something to change the world, that's a very short window. So I felt that before I completely lost my nerve, I would do it. So and the kind of interestingly foolish things we do when we are naive, and clearly I know a lot of people might not consider 28 or 29 young, but at that point that was my age, and you do foolish things when you're young, which is the only way to take risks. If you
call this foolishness, I think everybody should do this foolishness.
but in hindsight, it seemed like, oh, you did something. But for every one of me who actually succeeds, there are 1,000 who try it and fail. But I think without pontificating or giving gyan, I think the most important thing is that people need to take the chance. And that was the one overriding thing for me, is, instead of just going to bed every night and saying, oh, I have a filmmaker in me, for me it was worth risking all my savings just to find out if there was a filmmaker in me, instead of spending the rest of my life with that stupid mantra. So that's what I did.
Coming back to your Atlanta days, what do you remember from Atlanta? Like, I remember that you used to live in Marietta, because I used to live in Marietta, and we spoke about that.
One of the many places I've lived in Atlanta. As a matter of fact, when I first came to Atlanta in '88, at that time, graduate students never got on-campus housing. So the first location that I stayed at was in an apartment not far from the campus. The strangest thing, I actually remember the address even now. It was 1059 B Snyder Street, and I lived there first. Then I lived on Buford Highway, rooming with another friend. Then in Marietta, then in Alpharetta for a little while. I just all over the place. Yeah.
Do you have still any connection to Atlanta, like any friends or relative or anybody apart from me?
Now you've moved too, right?
No. I'm just visiting LA. I'm still living in Atlanta.
Okay. I thought you'd moved, because all of a sudden you said I'm on the same. I'm in the same time zone. So I was like,
yeah. No. I'm just visiting my brother. But I still live in Atlanta. I live in Cumming. I don't know whether Cumming was.
I lived in Cumming too.
You lived in Cumming too? Oh,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, there's a terrific friend of mine called Dave Tofield who lived in Cumming.
Okay.
And he moved to South Carolina, so he doesn't live there anymore. But as a matter of fact, right after I finished Hyderabad Blues, it was, the cliched story of a broke filmmaker. I mean, I had a movie that at that point actually hadn't even done any festivals. So I'd quote unquote achieved my dream, but then reality set in, and I came back to Atlanta with a suitcase with 6 cans. But,
oh, really?
Back in the 35mm days when we had those huge metal cans in which we transported film. I came back to Atlanta with those 6 cans, but other than a rough idea that I was going to send it to film festivals, I really didn't know what the next step was. So, and at that time I didn't have a place to stay, and Dave was like, hey man, I have an extra bedroom if you want to come. And so I stayed with Dave for a fairly long time, on off for almost a year and a half, up and coming. Yeah. So
I have a bedroom too. I hope time I come to Atlanta. I bought a house of 5 bedrooms, so I have a lot of bedrooms right now.
Yeah, now I can visit, you know, not as a broke filmmaker. Let me say that that time things were different, a little different. But no, actually, I don't. A lot of my friends who were in Atlanta all moved, so I don't have friends who still live in Atlanta.
Okay.
Uh, but it's a very strange connection because I keep coming back to Atlanta every few years. I was actually there. The last time I was there was in 2019 before the pandemic.
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah, and there was no reason. Another friend of mine went to. Actually, it's unfair for me to say I still don't have any friends who live in Atlanta. It's very unfair. So let me retract that statement. Because
Okay.
I have a very good friend called Pat Cusick who lives in Atlanta, but I was trying to go back to the period of Georgia Tech, and none
Mm-hmm.
of those friends ever stayed back. But Pat Cusick is a friend who I made through my acting class. And so when I visited Atlanta, I stayed with Pat.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and I do this every 5 years or so. I come back to Atlanta and I go back to all my old haunts. Um, just just for the heck of it. I'll go back to campus just to see if my degree was actually in chemical engineering but my research was entirely in the environmental area.
Okay.
Yeah. So I go back to my chemical engineering building. I go back to all the restaurants that I ate at, and we're talking about about varsity and stuff like that. We're not talking about the high end ones. So
Mm-hmm.
because there were never any high end ones back in Georgia Tech. So, but yeah, so it's a strange, uh, bittersweet sort of connection with Atlanta. Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about, Atlanta and you for a longest period of time, but let's, come back to the reality and let's talk about City of Dreams. City
Yeah.
of Dreams, when I saw it first, I didn't know that you directed it. And I just saw it and I just fell in love with it. And when I saw your name as a director, I was like, oh my God, this is directed by Nagesh Kukunoor. It was so well written, such a powerful story. It's a women-oriented movie, series. Such a powerful role. And, Katappa ne Bahubali ko kyun mara ke baad, she killed her brother. And what happened after that? The season 2 is coming. So tell us something about, this story and City of Dreams.
Rohit Banavlikar, who's the other writer, he and I had been ideating about we'd written this film where we had three
Mm-hmm.
intersecting storylines, and it never happened. And so we said, what if we expanded this film, because it was a film set in Bombay, to a larger format, and that's how
Mm-hmm.
City of Dreams was born. And uh, I just had the best time writing it and making it, and just the chance to explore characters over such a long arc.
Yeah.
And once I got the taste, I was very, very curious to see if, because they always say that season 2 is usually the death of a show. Because if a show does really well, you get renewed for season 2. But
Yeah.
then if season 2 doesn't stand up to the hype, because when the first time it came around, no one knew anything about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm proud of, and Applause totally backed me on this, was to cast a bunch of people who are not known in the Hindi space. I
Yeah.
used all the Marathi actors, other than Sachin Telgaonkar and Atul Kulkarni. Everyone else they're all big in the Marathi industry. Don't get me wrong, but they're relatively unknown in Hindi. So it was just very exciting to do it with really good actors, not known names, and when it did well, and season 2 was sanctioned, then it became, it was quite terrifying, because now the audience expectations are high, right? And how do you live up to that? So
I'm dying to see it. I'm really dying to see this one.
We
So
had a
do you
big
call
challenge in front of us.
yourself do you call yourself a feminist? Because if we see your past movies like Door and all those, I think you have that kind of a inclination towards um, women-oriented movies and stories?
Uh, See, without giving myself any definitions, one of the reasons that I, in all my films, I've always had uh, not just strong, because I think that's now 24 years later, that's a term that really means nothing. As if, just like there
Yeah.
are weak men and strong men, there are weak women and strong women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have written fairly strong women characters, but I think I've taken extra care not to fall into the pattern of presenting cliches on screen when it comes to women, because that's what happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea was to tell more stories that explored stuff from a woman's point of view. And now, actually, if you look at I would say in the last 5 years, if you look at
Yeah.
the streaming services and the shows and the movies that come on, I mean, we're fast moving towards a 50-50 position, right?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
thing like, oh, this is a woman-oriented film, which meant that it had a woman as a protagonist, which is kind of foolish.
Yeah.
It should just, I mean, why should that be any different from any other story? So I haven't exactly planned on that, but like I told someone, because enough stories haven't been told about women, that area is fertile,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's as,
You
I mean,
have
the,
you have a
it's,
lot to you have a lot to write about.
exactly. I have tons to explore. Women politicians, yeah, sure, there have been one or two made in the past. It's not that it's not, but as opposed to 100 male politicians, right?
Yeah.
There
Right.
just have so that's my answer. So there are so many stories that can be told from a very different perspective, which hasn't been explored before. That's all.
Yeah. And you directed a Telugu movie in 2020. So why did you go back to your roots and decided to direct a Telugu movie? And you started off with Hindi. And why did you do that?
Well, I never went back to Telugu movies because I never made a Telugu film, because a lot of Telugus believe that Hyderabad Blues was a Telugu film, which it was about Telugus, but it wasn't. It
Yeah.
was accurately more of a English film, even though there was
Yeah.
some element of Telugu in it.
Yeah.
For years, uh, on and off, I've been getting offers to do Telugu films. Um, but it's one of those things that I haven't, uh, I've never taken it up, for the simple reason that I didn't want to attempt to do something. And mind you, Telugu is my mother tongue. But growing up in Hyderabad, I spoke more of Dakhini. That's the Hyderabadi Hindi.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and I spoke a lot more of Dakhini, and I spoke, going to English medium schools, you spoke a lot of English. So I spoke very little of Telugu, and because we traveled a fair bit, I never learned to read and write Telugu either.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So I speak Telugu, but it's one of those things where I was actually always nervous about getting into the Telugu side of things. And till 2019 rolled around, and someone approached me if this was my own script, but if I'd be interested in, there was a chance to work with Kirti Suresh, who's a very a really well-known actress both in Tamil and Telugu, and she had a huge, monstrous, national award-winning film called Mahanati. So it was one of those things. I said, oh, maybe the timing's right. What the heck? So I plunged in and took a shot. So we'll see how the results turn out.
Okay. So one thing I always wanted to ask you, how's your Hindi?
I think it's pretty good. No, now.
No. Because
It wasn't for a very long time.
yeah, because you're an actor too. So now let's test your acting abilities. You know, your Hindi is good. You are a good actor. You're a good writer. You're a good director. So we have already spoken about your, directorial things and the stories you have written. But let's test your acting ability. So, what's your favorite dialogue from any movie?
Oh my God. Jeez. I haven't been asked that in a very long time.
And you
Yeah,
have to deliver it like with the same conviction.
oh, but see, the I think that era is gone, right? When I grew up, dialogue bazi from the films was very, very important. It was
Yeah.
so even as a child, I always um, used to mouth off dialogues from Sholay.
Yeah.
That was something that I did for, I think, which every child did, right? I don't know
Yeah.
if there were people who never did, but yeah. So yeah, I used to do a lot of the Sholay dialogues.
Sholay
Oh, by the way,
dialogue.
yeah, the painting that you see behind me,
Yeah.
that's one of the series. MF Hussain, when he saw Iqbal, was so
Oh,
moved
right.
by the film that he did a whole series of paintings, and I think my sister's got a few. There, he did a series of paintings on Iqbal. So
Wow.
there's
These are M.F. Hussein's paintings.
yeah, but to be these are not the originals. Obviously, the originals are stashed away somewhere, but these are the authenticated prints that he himself signed and gave. There are only 20 copies of this ever made,
Yeah.
and he actually had given one to each of us who were involved with the film. So Nasiruddin Shah got one. The two or
Wow.
three main actors got one each. I got one. It was stuff like that. So yeah. But sorry, I digress. But that holds a special place in my heart, considering that the man's gone. But I got
Yeah.
to. Yeah, he was just touched by Iqbal so much that he actually made a series. But
Iqbal, yeah,
okay.
Iqbal was a fantastic movie. Yeah. Okay, dialogue.
Oh boy, this is going. But वही कह रहा हूँ ना कि डायलॉग बाजी का जमाना गया, तो आजकल कोई डायलॉग बोलता ही नहीं. मैं बचपन से अगर याद करने की कोशिश करूँ तो क्या बोलूँ. But it's like a cliched thing, and you need to be able to deliver it
That's
right.
Okay. Everybody wants to see Nagesh Kukunoor sing a Sholay dialogue.
Yeah. And everyone did Gabbar, of course. So it was like, कितने आदमी थे? दो आदमी सरकार. दो और तुम तीन, I think is what he says.
Yeah.
खाली हाथ वापस आए हो, इसकी सजा जरूर मिलेगी, बराबर मिलेगी. That's all I remember. I know I'm
क्या
even.
लगा था गब्बर खुश होगा, शाबाशी देगा.
Yeah, शाबाशी देगा. That's right. See, you remember more. Yeah. No, but I used to just reel off the entire thing. And it was the standard beta poetry बोल दो के बजाय
डायलॉग बोल दो.
डायलॉग बोल दो. That was it.
आज इंटरव्यू में दोबारा पूछा जा रहा है.
Exactly, इतने सालों के बाद.
Right. Now, what's your favorite song? These are like soft questions. Okay?
This has been asked often of me, and there are too many Kishore songs to pick from. But I know that one of my possibly top 3 or 5 songs is Bhavre Ki Gunjan from Kal Aaj Aur Kal.
Ah.
Yeah. yeah.
हो जाए.
अरे भाई, अच्छा dialogue बाजी हो गया अब. So it's like, how many different ways can I make a fool of myself?
No, just a fun interview.
भंवरे की गुंजन है मेरा दिल, कब से संभाले रखा है दिल, तेरे लिए, तेरे लिए, तेरे लिए, तेरे लिए.
Oh my God, you are a singer too?
No, please.
How many talents do you have?
Not.
Georgia Tech graduate, a director, an actor, a singer, a screenwriter. Oh my God,
That's
a
very
storyteller.
I'm glad the singing is all in the bathrooms and in the safety of family karaoke group occasionally. But
What
yeah.
are you saying? A fabulous. I didn't know you can sing. मैंने तो एक shot मारा था.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. But, yeah.
Okay. I think it's already half an hour. I don't want to take much of your time. So my last question would be, how difficult do you think, or how, like, pros and cons of OTT platform?
So if you had asked me this a few years ago, I'd have said it's all pros, because all of a sudden, for filmmakers such as I, you're not bound by the very standard gatekeepers of Bollywood to tell the same stories. Go get a hero. You write a story, but then, the economics don't make sense, so you have to go get a hero or occasionally an heroine, make the project. And the same, the variety restriction was always there, no matter how hard I fought it. So OTTs just have, the space has exploded. You're free to do just about everything. But having said that, OTTs are slowly now coming back into what kind of stories you can tell, and what you can do, what you can show, what you can't. No different from the film line, which was so vibrant and open at one time. So that kind of gets a little cumbersome with the kind of material that one wants to explore at this point. So in the short span of 5 years, a lot of stuff has changed, and changed rather dramatically.
Yeah, because there are so many OTT platforms right now, and to stand out, like there's Netflix, there's Amazon Prime, there's Hotstar.
Yeah.
So for City of Dreams, what do you think will stand out, and people will go to Hotstar and see City of Dreams?
To be perfectly honest, I wish I knew. See, the easiest thing, if I were to look at it from the audience's point of view, a lot of evenings when you don't know what to do, you're going to go click the button on something where you recognize a face, right? So
right.
That's usually the starting point. The second is word of mouth, family, friends, social media that, praise a show, and then you go, oh, let me check it out. So these are the two dominant ways. Hotstar, even on season 1, had done a great job of advertising the show. If you lived in Bombay, you would see hoardings of City of Dreams, which I did see. So they did work hard on publicizing the show. So a show with, again, like I repeat, no name actors in the Hindi arena managed to get good mileage. So I'll be honest, Namita, it's very, very hard to break the clutter. It's very hard.
Yes.
So I don't know what works or what doesn't. Plus, I suck at marketing, right? I'm not on social media platforms. So neither do I sell what I make. So I don't know the answer to your question. All one can do is make it and keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think word of mouth should really work, because as I told you earlier, I didn't know that you directed City of Dreams, and I just clicked it.
Right.
And yeah, your first point is also valid. A known face. The first thumbnail which you see should be impactful. So yeah, and I'm pretty sure the second season would be as impactful as it was, in the first season, and I'm eagerly waiting to see it. So with this note, thank you so much, Mr. Kukunoor, for speaking with me and taking out time, and all the best for City of Dreams and all your future projects.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And actually, believe it or not, this is the first interview I've done on City of Dreams, the season.
Really?
2. So, so there we go. All right. Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.